Young General Yang was sulking with his beloved at the night banquet. He hid a late-blooming magnolia. He declared that whoever found that flower would become the general's wife. The noble ladies all turned their heads to look around. I wonder where that late magnolia has fallen. I didn't say anything, quietly. I just kicked away the flower behind my seat. The next moment, Yang Xi's casual voice rang out. I wonder which young lady has found my flower. Miss Shen gasped. She bent down and picked up the late magnolia branch still wet with dew, holding the flower, her cheeks flushed. I found it. She quickly glanced at Yang Xi, then shyly lowered her head. This scene felt strangely familiar. In the previous life, I was the one who picked up the flower because that flower was hidden just behind my seat at that time. Yang Xi simply stood there and gave a soft smile. I only found out later, he was just sulking. The woman he loved had married someone else at the border garrison. He, too, would take a wife. To prove that he had long since moved on, it didn't matter who she was. For a moment, everyone looked with envy at the girl beside me. Young General Yang Xi, born into a prestigious family, was the Empress's nephew. He took to the battlefield at 13 and led troops at 15. At 20, he defeated 20,000 enemies with only 3,000 cavalry, shaking the realm with his fame. He was the most dazzling young general in the great Liang dynasty, the dream lover of countless noble ladies. At this moment, he stood in the hall, his red robe fluttered, and he wore light silver armor. Such a man had hidden a flower at the night banquet, saying he would marry whoever found it who wouldn't be moved. So it's Miss Shen. From her seat, the Empress gave a gentle smile. Then this palace shall take the liberty. Before the words had even finished, suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the banquet. The wind came strangely. The hall doors were shut tight, the beaded curtain hanging low, yet the candles on the table flickered in unison, nearly extinguished. The flower in Miss Shen's hand was actually carried away by the eerie wind, in full view of everyone. That late-blooming magnolia twirled across half the hall, and landed squarely on my knee. The entire room fell into a dead silence. The Empress looked at me in surprise. Miss Xue, it seems you share a certain bond with a CI. Yang Xi smiled indifferently. In that case, then marry her. If this were my past life, I would probably have blushed and my heart would have pounded like a drum, but now, I only feel a chill all over. I did not hesitate. I immediately knelt down, interrupting Yang Xi's words. This humble daughter dare not. This humble daughter already has someone in her heart. I found an excuse to leave the table. The night wind blew against my face, carrying the chill of early spring. The late magnolias behind the main hall gleamed white in the moonlight. I took a deep breath. I have unexpectedly returned to this night feast, returned to the age of 16, before fate had found me in my previous life. When I found that flower behind the seat, I thought it was a mercy from heaven, but I never expected that would be the last bit of joy in this life. When I married into the general's household in my past life, the entire capital was laughing at me. Rumor has it that General Yang didn't even catch a glimpse of her face. He just placed the flower casually. With such a humble background, is she really worthy of him? Even if she marries into the family, she'll only suffer. On their wedding night, Yang Xi did not show up. It was nearly dawn. The maidservant whispered to me, Yang Xi has retired to the study. I lifted my own bridal veil and drank the nuptial wine. The wedding candles on the table burned out, their red wax dripping low. Early the next morning, Yang Xi returned to the frontier without a word. From then on, everyone in the mansion knew that the general did not favor his new bride. I was subjected to my mother-in-law's deliberate vexations and rebukes. Someone from a small and humble family, after all, just can't hold their own in decent company, can't even keep your husband. What use are you? I knelt on the ground, not daring to look up. Tears swirled in my eyes. I asked myself over and over again, but Xue Zhuxin, what exactly did you do wrong? You were wrong to marry a husband who did not love you, yet your whole life, you have never been free to choose. The 5th year of marriage, Yang Xi has returned from the border. He came back to the mansion late at night. I was very sleepy, yet I still followed the household rules. I lit a lamp in the front hall and waited for him. Yang Xi had probably long forgotten these rules. He looked quite surprised when he saw me. You're still awake, I smiled meekly. Waiting for the general. Yang Xi's eyes flickered slightly. A long time passed. He held me and let out a sigh. Hard days are over, my lady, from now on, I won't leave again. I was taken aback. A heart that had been silent for a long time suddenly stirred that night. He didn't leave, his kiss was fierce, and I could hardly breathe. Husband, he gripped my waist, his voice hoarse, call me General, and I'll spare you. After that night he was like a lovesick teenager. Every few days he would bring me something meant for a young lady, hairpins and jewelry, preserved fruits and pastries. I didn't know it at the time. His return to the capital this time was because the one in his heart had given birth to a child, just like when he married me back then. Because the beloved had married someone else, I knew nothing about it. I was simply overjoyed. I think the days are finally getting better. Until that night, Yang Ci, drunk, barged into my room. This time, he didn't turn off the lights, just sitting by the bed, sizing me up. He had never looked at me with such lingering tenderness. Then, he called me Changhuan. I felt as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. Who doesn't know Meng Changhuan, the only female general of the current dynasty, renowned for her military exploits, as famous as Yang Ci, astride a white horse in a red tasseled hat. How dashing she is. That night, Yang Ci's movements were different from usual, exceptionally gentle, but I couldn't stop crying. The moon was bright white, dissolving into my tears, becoming my pupils. I saw that night banquet from many years ago. The young general angrily tossed the late blooming magnolia behind my seat. I witnessed the inner courtyard of the general's mansion over the years, how I counted every drip of the night water clock, weeping, until I endured till dawn. I ached almost to death. Yang Ci was completely unaware. He leaned over me. His shadow nearly swallowed me whole. Yet tenderly, affectionately, he called out to me again and again, Changhuan, Changhuan. In the years that followed, I carefully kept to my role and treated him with respectful distance. Even the most critical mother-in-law could find no fault. I once heard Yang Ci sigh to his subordinates, Lady Shui is virtuous. But alas, Jushin is not the one for me. My heart died long ago at the frontier. I stopped caring long ago, yet somehow, it still hurts. Later, Meng Changhuan died in battle. Yang Ci locked himself in his study and refused to see anyone. I didn't want to get involved. It's just that his subordinates had no other options. They begged me to go in and take a look at the general. When I entered, the study had no lights on. Yang Ci hugged me from behind. Meng Changhuan, don't leave. His voice was muffled and choked with tears. I've accepted that you married someone else, accepted that you had a child, but why did you have to die? On the desk, there were many unsent letters scattered about. I saw the salutation on each one. All of them were addressed to Changhuan. I stood in the darkness, listening to his cries, for a long time. Then, I decided to grant his wish. I pulled out those affectionate, heartfelt letters one by one and laid them on the ground. I am weak by nature. I have never done anything out of line since I was a child. I dare not even speak loudly, but now, suddenly, I don't want to go on like this anymore. I set the letter paper on fire. He wasn't woken up. The love letters were burned into curling, ashen remnants like funeral paper money offered to the dead. General Meng is dead. If you truly care for her so deeply, you should go with her. The firelight flickers across my face, now bright, now dim. I caress Yang Ci's face, whispering softly, do you hear it? She's so lonely. Yang Ci, go keep her company, go die. I've already burned your love letter for her. You're next. The flames suddenly leaped up, licking at the hem of his clothes. I stood up and walked into the night. I don't know where I'm going. I can't return to the Shui family, and the Yang family isn't my home either. The world is so vast, but where else can I go? A young servant ran past me in terror, shouting, fire! The general is still in his study. Go get the lady. How stupid, I thought. Why call for the lady? Madam doesn't know how to put out fires either. I looked at my own reflection in the pond. She always kept her eyes lowered like a clay statue of a bodhisattva without a temper, easily bullied. But at this moment, her eyes and brows are curved. She is actually laughing heartily. She says to me, Shui Jushin, you are free. The moment the reflection in the pool shattered, the bright moon turned along the corridor. I gazed at the late magnolias on the branches, recalling the night banquet just now. Yang Ci was still the young general I knew, casual, indifferent, aloof, until the moment I rejected the marriage proposal. He barely showed a hint of annoyance. Don't worry, I'm not going to marry you. I was just recalling. Suddenly, a cold sneer sounded in my ear. That idiot. A chill crept up my spine. I whipped my head around. At the end of the long corridor, where the lights were dim, a person stood there. His skin was pale, and his pupils were pitch black under the moonlight. He cast no shadow. No. I thought, he is not human. It was because the fire in the previous life didn't burn cleanly. A vengeful spirit crawled out from the ashes. An icy breath brushed against my neck. He called me with a smiling face. My wife. Ah! I let out a soft sigh. What a pity. Yang Si leaned in with a faint, teasing smile. I could even feel the cold, grim aura emanating from him. You seem disappointed. Yes. I curved my eyes and spoke softly. That I couldn't burn the general to ashes. Instead, you come back to see me in this neither yin nor yang manner. The night wind suddenly grew stronger. Yang Si gently touched my face. You are my wife, married with full ceremony. In the netherworld or the human realm, I naturally want to be with you. The news of my rejecting the marriage proposal spread throughout the capital in less than 3 days. The rumors on the streets became more and more outrageous as the gossip spread. It turned into Second Miss Shui despises young General Yang and Second Miss Shui has long had a secret lover. The Shui family's status is not high. My father is merely a 5th-rank official in the capital. All my mother ever sought in her life was to have me marry decently. The Yang family is such a good match. So many people would jump at the chance to marry into it. And yet you rejected the proposal in public, even going so far as to mention someone you have feelings for. Mother wiped away her tears. Tell me, who is that man? I lowered my eyes. There is no such person. I just don't want to marry Yang Si. Mother's tears flowed even more fiercely, as if I had committed a grave mistake. But what did I do wrong? My only mistake was not wanting to marry someone I don't like, and who doesn't like me. I just got a second chance at life. I don't want to live that kind of life anymore. At dusk, ghosts and demons reveal themselves. See, who would dare to marry you? Yang Si sneered. Even if you had a second chance, you could still only choose me. He had been following me for many days. He was nowhere to be seen during the day, but appeared every night. Sometimes he stood under the corridor, sometimes sat on the roof beam. More often than not, they just cling to my back like this, whispering softly. I don't mind. He doesn't even have a physical body, just a lonely wandering spirit. That's the most he's capable of. It was merely the gust of sinister wind that stirred the night banquet. I retorted sarcastically. Choose you. You're already dead, but I'm still alive. Who will marry me? No need for you to worry. Yang Si's sore spot had been hit, staring right at me. If you refuse the marriage in court, he will not let you off. I let out a soft laugh. That fire, did it also burn out his mind? If he wants to see a joke, he might as well look in the mirror. Are you talking about that little thing? I'm waiting. On the day of the spring hunt, the weather was clear and bright. I hadn't wanted to come in the first place. It was the Empress who sent the invitation. Whose intention this was goes without saying. It's because General Yang still holds you in his thoughts. Mother finally stopped crying. She took my hand and chattered on. Jushin, this is an immense honor. You must not be willful any longer. Is it a tremendous honor, or a tremendous joke? I lowered my eyes and said no more. In the Empress's tent, the finest goose pear incense was burning. The noble ladies sat in small groups, whispering among themselves. Is that the second daughter of the Shui family? She actually refused young General Yang's marriage proposal in public. How ungrateful. I've heard these words countless times in my past life. Back then, when I married into the general's residence, they mocked me for aiming above my station. Now that I've rejected the marriage proposal, I'm the one who doesn't know how to appreciate favors. Amidst the laughter and conversation, Yang Si arrived. More than half of the noble ladies in the tent blushed. He was dressed in a black riding outfit today. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and an upright posture. He finished paying his respects to the Empress. His gaze drifted gently and came to rest on me. Second Miss Shui is here as well. I didn't answer, and he didn't mind. The Empress said with a smile, instead of going to the hunting ground, you come to pay your respects to me. Not in a hurry. Yang Si smiled. Aunt, you have some good tea here. Let me have a sip before I go. As he spoke, he looked down at me again. Miss Shui, has your beloved come today? I looked up at him. He sat slumped lazily, a mocking smile playing on his lips. These days, he has been investigating me thoroughly. Naturally, he discovered that the person I claimed to have feelings for was something I made up on the spot. This humble maiden has no one she holds dear in her heart. Yang Ci raised an eyebrow. At that night's banquet, who was it that said, "Your servant was unwell that day and spoke improperly"? I lowered my eyes, adopting a humble posture. "Please, young general, forgive me." There was a momentary silence in the tent. The noble ladies exchanged glances. It was Yang Ci who let out a laugh, utterly cold and arrogant. "Shui Jushin, this is not up to you. Whether you're willing or not, you picked up my flower, so you belong to me." The hunting ground was in the mountains. Before entering the mountains, the Empress held my hand. She insisted that I share the ride with her. "Our Ci may not be articulate, but he truly cares about you in his heart." Her smile held a trace of sorrow. "Just look at him, he insisted on marrying you." I lowered my head in trepidation. The Empress sized me up a few times. I had no idea how Yang Ci had taken a liking to me. I grew even more troubled. The carriage slowly moved forward along the small path into the mountains. The spring breeze blew by, carrying the scent of flowers. "Everything is fine." I touched the handkerchief tucked inside my sleeve. It had been given to me before entering the mountains by a noble lady in a pale yellow jacket. "They say there are many mosquitoes in the mountains. Gave it to me to repel mosquitoes." I remember her. The feast of this life began when she first picked up Yang Ci's flower. Just now in the queen's tent, when Yang Ci said he would marry me, her eyes turned red. I did not decline. She pretended to be flustered as she accepted it. "In my previous life, I once overheard some of the mansion's elders mention it. There is a type of spice at the border. It has no effect on humans when smelled, but wild beasts will go mad if they catch its scent. I never thought in my life that someone would use this against me. What a pity." The carriage traveled along a secluded forest path. I silently tucked the handkerchief into the gap between the cushions. This spot was very close to the Empress. Close enough that if a beast should come, the first one it would pounce on would be no other than her. The Empress was still chatting and laughing with the noble ladies beside her. Completely unaware, the forest suddenly fell silent. No birdsong, no insects chirping, not even the sound of wind. A roar suddenly exploded from the forest. "There's a beast! Protect the Emperor! Protect the Emperor now!" But it was already too late. In an instant, a tiger with bulging eyes and a white forehead pounced on the imperial carriage, so fast that the guards had no time to react. The Empress turned deathly pale. At the critical moment, I stood in front of the Empress. The crowd screamed in shock. At the moment the tiger lunged at us, I reached back and drew the gem-studded dagger from the Empress's waist. It pierced fiercely into its neck. Warm blood sprayed out, but the tiger's movement did not falter. Its claws landed on my shoulder, tearing through flesh. I was swatted away and hit the ground hard. The tiger was enraged. It growled and walked toward me. The dagger was still stuck in its neck. I have no weapons, so I brace myself with my hands on the ground and move backward. The wound on my shoulder is throbbing with intense pain. Blood trickles down my arm, dragging a red streak across the ground. The tiger approached step by step. A fierce gleam shone in its eyes. Not far away, the guards were running over in panic. "Just hold on a little longer, hold on a little longer, and it will be fine." But the tiger didn't give me a chance. It opened its mouth, revealing gleaming white fangs, and a gust of foul wind hit my face. My hands fumbled blindly on the ground. I grabbed a handful of sand. It threw it towards its eyes. The moment the tiger's movement stalled, I rolled to the side, picking up a branch. I held it across my chest. The tiger lunged at me furiously. My pupils contracted sharply. That moment seemed to slow down, slower and slower. In a flash of white light passed before my eyes. A red tasseled spear pierced through the air. It drove straight into the tiger's skull. The massive body of the tiger crashed to the ground. A rain of blood fell all over him. The young general stepped on the tiger's head. "Kneel down and look at me, so brave." The voice was clear and bright, with a hint of teasing. Clearly, it was a woman. She raised an eyebrow, holding a little twig and daring to poke a tiger. I was stunned. Behind her, Yang Ci's trembling voice came through. "Chang Huan." Yang Ci was both surprised and delighted. "When did you come back? Why didn't you tell me? I would have picked you up." "General Yang," Meng Changhuan interrupted him. His tone was polite yet distant. I am returning to the capital by imperial decree and happen to pass by this place. No need to go to any trouble. Yang Xi's hands clenched and then relaxed. His gaze fell on me. By the way, Chenghuan, Yang Xi seemed to remember something suddenly. Let me introduce you. This is my fiancé, Xue Zhuxian. He said this in a casual tone, but his eyes were fixed on Meng Chenghuan the whole time. He thought she would be surprised, disappointed, or care at least a little, but Meng Chenghuan just said, "Oh." Then she looked at me, and then at Yang Xi, fiancé, she asked, "Yes." Yang Xi wore his usual casual, offhand smile. She caught my eye at the banquet, so I went ahead and settled it. Meng Chenghuan clicked his tongue. Yang Xi's smile froze. "What's wrong?" Meng Chenghuan did not answer him, she just looked at me. He tilted his head in confusion. "Xue Zhuxian," she asked. "How did you ever come to fancy him?" Yang Xi's expression darkened. I was stunned too. Meng Chenghuan did not wait for his answer. She swiftly tore off a piece of her sleeve, helped me bandage the wound. Simply, Yang Xi stood still, his face shifting from pale to ashen. "Chenghuan, what do you mean by that? Your fiancé is injured, yet instead of asking her if she's in pain, you're here challenging me." Meng Chenghuan's gaze was calm. "Besides, both of us are already engaged. General Yang, have some self-respect." After she finished speaking, she scooped me up horizontally in her arms. She carried a pleasant, crisp scent of soap. It was so comforting that it made me want to drift off to sleep. I dug my nails into my palms and forced myself to stay awake. "General Meng," I called out to her in a small voice. "I can walk on my own." Meng Chenghuan looked down at me for a moment, but said nothing. I bit my lip and repeated it again. She still ignored me, holding me. She walked steadily forward. I had no choice but to reach out and push her shoulder. But just as my hand touched the edge of her clothes, she suddenly grabbed my wrist. Her gaze fell on my palm, which was covered with crescent-shaped nail marks. My face turned pale. There was a shy embarrassment of being seen through. The next moment, I heard her sigh softly. "Hurting this much and still putting on a brave front. Xue Zhuxian, you must have endured a lot of suffering." I was woken up by the pain. The wound on my shoulder burned like it was being scorched by fire. I instinctively curled up. Then I heard a cold voice. "Don't move." The tent was dimly lit, with only a small lamp burning. A young man sat by the couch, his head bowed as he read a medical text. He had a refined and handsome appearance. His features bore a 70% resemblance to Meng Chenghuan's, yet lacked that bold and radiant temperament. What replaced it was a sense of detachment. He closed the medical book and glanced at me. "I just finished stitching your wound. If it splits open again, I can't promise the stitches will look nice." I hesitated and blinked. "Dr. Meng." I had heard of him, Meng Changning, the youngest chief physician of the Imperial Medical Institute. There are rumors in the capital that his medical skills are almost supernatural. Any difficult or incurable disease that falls into his hands can be miraculously cured. However, he is aloof and indifferent, not showing the slightest warmth. Even when treating His Majesty, his face remains cold and expressionless, refusing to smile even a little more. Meng Changning responded casually. Walking to the desk, he picked up the brush and wrote out a prescription. "My elder sister sent me to take care of you. She said you're quite bold and told me to keep an eye on you, so you don't end up hurting yourself." I pursed my lips. Meng Changning looked up at me. "Just say what you want to say." "What about General Meng then?" I asked. Meng Changning tutted with an as-expected look. "She had something to take care of and couldn't get away. But she was worried about you, so she sent me instead." I thanked him quietly, but then he said, "I didn't want to come in the first place." He glanced at me. "I can't be bothered to save someone who doesn't value their own life. But the Empress has also spoken, asking me to tend to your injuries. The person is not bad, but nothing pleasant ever comes out of their mouth." Just as I was silently complaining, Meng Changning placed a small Celadon bottle by my pillow. "I come every day to change the dressing. If it hurts, take one pill. Don't try to tough it out." I silently take back what I said earlier. All right. There was at least one nice thing said. After Meng Changning left, I fiddled with the small Celadon bottle. I spoke softly. "Have you had enough?" In places where the candlelight couldn't reach, the ghost revealed itself. "Xue Zhuxian, you're ruthless enough." He stepped out of the shadows, letting the moonlight pass through his body. He sneered. Do you think I can't see what you're scheming? I didn't speak. His voice was hoarse. You went to all this trouble to set up such a scheme, nearly costing you your own life, just to break off our engagement with me. Their eyes met. The emotions in his eyes were laid bare for all to see: shock, anger, confusion, and reluctance. After all these years as husband and wife, do you truly have no heart? I let out a surprised laugh. Jushin has always been empty to begin with. There's nothing wrong with that. Bamboo is tough precisely because it's hollow. Thus the wind cannot break it, nor the snow crush it. He stared blankly at me. A layer of mist veiled the eyes. Can ghosts shed tears too? I was puzzled, but then, on second thought, he doesn't even have a physical body, so where could the tears come from? It's just an obsession playing tricks. What's with this act of deep devotion? Thinking this, I just went ahead and asked, you've been watching the show for so many days. Don't you really find yourself disgusting after that night? I never saw that ghost again. I nursed my injuries for half a month. Gradually, I was able to move again. Meng Changning still came every day to change the dressing. He came and went in a hurry, never speaking more than 5 sentences. One day, I took the initiative to speak a 6th sentence. Imperial Physician Meng, I wish to study medicine. He was packing the medical kit. His hands paused, and he looked up at me. Oh, what does "oh" mean? I found out soon enough. The next day, when Meng Changning came to change the dressing, he also brought a box of books: the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, Treatise on Cold Pathogenic and Miscellaneous Diseases, Synopsis of the Golden Chamber, Shennong's Classic of Materia Medica, the Classic of Difficult Issues. Stacked together, they were taller than me. Meng Changning spoke indifferently. See, I casually opened a book. Above are his annotations. I curved my eyes. I am no stranger to these medical books. In my previous life at the General's mansion, I had plenty of time. No one spoke, no one came or went. My only pastime is reading. The mansion's scripture storage tower has a shelf of medical books. I read it over and over until I could recite it from memory. Only some parts are difficult and obscure. I have no one to ask for advice, so I have to settle for a superficial understanding. But now, with Meng Changning's annotations, I quickly understood what I couldn't figure out in my previous life. When Meng Changning came again on the 7th day, and heard me say cheerfully, Imperial Physician Meng, I've finished reading the book. Meng Changning, he picked up *, the Yellow Emperor's Inner Canon * with a faint, ambiguous smile. Lingshu, recite it, I blurted out without thinking. Huangdi asked Qi Bo, saying, I care for the myriad people, nurture the commoners and collect their taxes. I pity those who are in need, and who are afflicted with illnesses. I don't memorize quickly, sometimes I have to stop and think, but not a single word is wrong. Meng Changning silently picked up another one, Visceral Meridian Disease Patterns and Pulses. First, I answered very fluently. Question, what does it mean that the superior physician treats diseases before they manifest? The master said, treating diseases before they manifest means that when one sees a liver disorder, knowing that the liver can affect the spleen, one should first strengthen the spleen. If the spleen is robust throughout the 4 seasons and not susceptible to pathogenic influences, then no supplementation is needed. The mediocre physician, unaware of such transmission, upon seeing a liver disorder, does not understand the need to strengthen the spleen and only treats the liver. I finished reciting and stopped to look at him. Meng Changning was very satisfied. Take a medical casebook out of the medicine chest and place it in front of me. After reading, tell me where the prescription was wrong. He moved a chair, sitting across from me, reading a book. At dusk, I closed the medical case and handed it back. He glanced at my annotations and smiled softly. What you mentioned is indeed controversial. The Imperial Medical Institute debated for 2 days and finally settled on a compromise prescription. He gave me a deep look. None of them are as good as your new recipe. See you tomorrow. I blink my eyes. Suddenly I want to cry and laugh at the same time. I think, Shui Jushin, your past life was not in vain. Even on a dark night road, every step counts. The back courtyard of the Imperial Medical Institute became a place I had to visit every day. I learn very quickly. Even Meng Changning was amazed by my talent. Just 2 months, the prescriptions I write are already good enough to be kept as medical records. That day, I was Sorting through medicinal herbs, the door of the small courtyard was kicked open. "Second Miss Xue, what refined taste." Yang Ci looked down at me from above. "I've been looking for you for over half a month, and here you were hiding." I stood up, neither humble nor arrogant. "I, your humble subject, have been studying medicine at the Imperial Academy of Medicine." "Studying medicine?" Yang Ci sneered. "You are about to be married. What use is studying medicine to you?" I looked at him strangely. "I have already broken off the engagement." Yang Ci's expression darkened. "Who says so?" "Your Highness, the Empress," I said calmly. "Half a month ago, I beseeched your Highness for your gracious permission, and you granted it. Don't you know, General, after I woke up the Empress promised me a favor right then and there." I said I wanted to break off the engagement with Yang Ci. The Queen was silent for a long time. Ci is indeed somewhat unruly, but you don't have to," I interrupted softly. "I am not sulking." Seeing that I was insistent, the Empress didn't try to dissuade me further. Yang Ci might have heard about this matter, but no letter came. He now stood before me. His face was livid. "Xue Zhuxian, have you gone mad?" I quietly looked back at him. Yang Ci opened his mouth. His gaze suddenly fell on Meng Changning in the room. Meng Changning looked down, flipping through a book as if he hadn't noticed what was happening at all. Yang Ci stared at him for a moment, then it dawned on him. "You broke off our engagement for this pretty boy." I frowned. "Dr. Meng is merely my teacher." Yang Ci gave a sarcastic smile. "A man and a woman alone in a room together, and you tell me you're just teacher and student." I had no idea such depraved affairs could take place in the palace. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face, said coldly, "General Yang, watch your words. I study medicine under Dr. Meng with the Empress's consent." Yang Ci had been gone for a long time. I was still standing there, lost in thought. His two thrown-out sentences lingered in my ears. "You think calling off the engagement will set you free? Let me tell you, Xue Zhuxian, I just happen to like forcing people's hands, whether dead or alive. All are lingering spirits," I thought expressionlessly. "Hand." Meng Changning's voice came from behind. I turned my head. He had come out at some point without me noticing. "Hold out your hand." He glanced at my reddened palm. "Didn't pinch," I said. He responded indifferently. "Improvement." I fell into thought. These siblings are truly carved from the same mold. Yang Ci has been quite vexed lately. The news of his second broken engagement has spread throughout the capital, and it was again the Empress who had approved it. He didn't even have room to refute it. Miss Xue saved my life. I couldn't very well refuse her. When the Empress said this, her tone was gentle, but her meaning was firm. "You know as well, Aunt, that you don't lack this one." But he just couldn't swallow the indignity. He, Yang Ci, could have married any girl he wanted, yet a fifth-rank official's daughter not only refused him publicly but also took the initiative to call off the engagement. Now the whole capital is laughing at him. "Have you heard? Miss Xue divorced young General Yang." "That's not called divorce, it's called calling off the engagement." "What's the difference? Either way, she's the one who dumped him." These days he always found himself repeatedly recalling that scene in the mountains. Xue Zhuxian was holding that tree branch, covered in blood, with a look of utter resolve. He was so restless that he couldn't even bring himself to think about Meng Changhuan. Yang Ci crushed the wine glass in his hand. The shards cut his fingers. It was dripping with blood, but a cold laugh echoed in the study. "Is this all you're capable of?" Yang Ci suddenly drew his sword. "Who's there?" Turning back, he found himself locking eyes with another version of himself. The man's face was as pale as gold paper, his eyes as dark as lacquer under the moonlight. He was empty and hollow, casting no shadow. Yang Ci's pupils contracted. "What are you?" "Me." That thing smiled. "I am you." The ghost told him something. For instance, in a past life, he and Zhu Xinxue had been husband and wife. Later, he died at her hands. Yang Ci smiled. "Are you joking? You mean that woman who's as dull as a block of wood?" The ghost looked at him. "If you look down on her so much, why did she call off the engagement with you?" Yang Ci stopped smiling. "What do you want from me?" He turned his face away, his tone harsh. The ghost floated over. "Teach you how to win her back." Yang Ci looked as if he had just heard the most outrageous joke. "Why would I want to win her back? A woman who broke off our engagement, The ghost mimicked his daytime manner, reciting the lines without any emotion. I'm telling you, Xue Zhuxin, I happen to enjoy forcing people's hands. Yang Ci fell into an eerie silence. You heard that too. The ghost let out a scornful laugh. Stubborn mouth. That night, Yang Ci lay awake all night. His mind was filled with the words the ghost had said. You just haven't lost anything yet. You will regret it, regret treating her like that. Go and see what she does every day. See what kind of person she is. Yang Ci couldn't help but ask further. And then, the ghost said, then, you will die just like me, with your eyes wide open in despair, for some inexplicable reason. Yang Ci listened to what the ghost said. Even he himself didn't know why. It was early summer, and the locust trees were lush with leaves and branches, exactly blocking his figure. He hid in the tree, secretly observing Xue Zhuxin. Sometimes he would slowly divide, pound, and decoct the medicine. Sometimes he would sit across from Meng Changning, head bowed, writing a prescription. Occasionally, she would look up and ask a question. Meng Changning would answer, and she would nod before continuing to write. This was Xue Zhuxin as he had never seen her before. So radiant that one couldn't look away. He turned and walked away, only to return the next day. Then came the third day, the fourth day, and the fifth day. He told himself he was just coming to see what Xue Zhuxin was really capable of to break off his engagement. It was not until one day, half a month later, it started to rain. She was holding an umbrella in her right hand. She carried a food box. Yang Ci stood in the rain, watching her take out several kinds of pastries from the food box. She then ladled out a bowl of hot kanji and pushed it in front of Meng Changning. Meng Changning frowned, looking very reluctant. Xue Zhuxin blinked. If one does not eat at the Chenar 7 to 9 a.m., the stomach will be too weak to receive food, the spleen too weak to transform it, and the source for generating qi and blood will be cut off. Over time, all kinds of deficiencies will arise. Meng Changning was silent. Meng Changning obediently picked up the bowl. Xue Zhuxin smiled warmly. That's more like it. Yang Ci suddenly found the scene before his eyes extremely irritating. He had never eaten the food she cooked. That bastard had been married to her. I wonder if he's ever tasted her cooking. At that moment, Yang Ci was desperately jealous. He thought it over for an entire day and night. Early the next morning, on her way into the palace, Xue Zhuxin was intercepted by him, a young general who had always been the center of attention, yet he had no idea how to show his goodwill. He would walk straight up to her and awkwardly speak, Xue Zhuxin, I'll teach you martial arts. He had thought about it for a long time and decided it was a good idea. She killed a tiger last time. She has nothing but courage. If she encounters danger again, relying solely on a death-defying boldness will eventually lead to trouble. Besides, the martial arts he teaches are certainly better than the medicinal herbs Meng Changning fiddles with. Xue Zhuxin refused. No need to trouble yourself. Someone is already teaching me. Yang Ci was stunned. Who? Meng Changning. That weakling can't even kill a chicken. Xue Zhuxin was silent for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, she retorted, he knows how to kill a chicken. Yang Ci was absolutely furious. Is that the point? Xue Zhuxin. He decided to see for himself what was going on. At dusk, he found Xue Zhuxin in the woods west of the city. She was wearing light riding clothes, her hair was tied up high, and she held a wooden sword in her hand. Meng Changhuan stood behind her. One of his hands held her wrist, the other hand pressed against her waist. After adjusting the posture, he stepped back 2 paces and watched her practice with his arms crossed. Yang Ci looked on, dazed. For a long time the knuckles turned white from squeezing. What kind of behavior is this? Hiding here and peeping. The ghost spoke with a sense of frustrated disappointment, like a stray dog that no one wants. Yang Ci suddenly turned around, staring intently at the face that was identical to his own. Then let me ask you, what did you do to her? The ghost froze. Why would she rather fight that fierce tiger than marry you? Yang Ci stared into his evasive eyes. Suddenly, everything became clear. You said that in your past life, you were husband and wife. In her heart, you are even more terrifying than a wild beast. The ghost's lips moved, but not a single word came out. The younger version of himself sneered back at him, just as he suddenly looked back on those years of his past life after a long dead silence. One of his selves was the first to voice the truth. She actually hates you this much. Meng Changhuan is about to head back to the frontier. The border military situation is critical. She submitted a memorial and will set off the day after tomorrow. I thought it over all night. The next day, I went to the military training ground to find Meng Changhuan. She had just finished her shooting practice, and there was still sweat on her forehead. She thrust her spear into the ground, leaned against it, and waited for me to speak. General Meng. I looked up at her. I heard the army is short of doctors. She raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to continue. I've been studying medicine for over half a year now. I can treat febrile diseases, traumatic injuries, and bone setting. Meng Changning said I'm ready to start practicing on my own. I handed her Meng Changning's letter of recommendation, but in truth, I was far from being truly proficient. I just want to seize this opportunity. Meng Changning listened to my idea without asking many questions. He just quietly wrote the letter of recommendation. I secretly opened it and took a look. A person known for their sharp tongue, yet when they put pen to paper, their words were incredibly gentle, resilient in character, superb in medical skills, capable of standing on one's own. I said, I want to go with you to the frontier. Meng Changhuan, however, did not look at that letter of recommendation. I know you, and I trust you. She patted me on the shoulder. The day after tomorrow, between 3 and 5 a.m., at the 10-mile pavilion on the outskirts of the capital. I will not wait past that time. The afternoon sunlight was warm and gentle. I stood where I was, watching her figure riding off into the distance. How could anyone in this world not love Meng Changhuan? Silver saddle shining on a white horse, swift and dazzling like a shooting star. Meng Changhuan, who lives life with unbridled freedom and faces death with equal openness. Under the heavens and earth. I lowered my head and smiled softly. I used to resent you, just a little, but now I see you are truly wonderful, so good that I also want to become like you. I quickly packed my bag, a few pieces of clothing, a set of silver needles, the medical book Meng Changning gave me, and the dagger Meng Changhuan gave me. That was all my worldly possessions. I left a letter for my mother. Apart from the Meng siblings, I didn't tell anyone I was leaving. Deep in the night, an unexpected visitor arrived. Second Miss Xue. The general requests your presence at his residence. I didn't have time to speak. A handkerchief covered my mouth and nose. I lost consciousness when I woke up. I had somehow been changed into a wedding dress. At the edge of my vision, a pair of dragon and phoenix wedding candles were burning softly. This is the general's residence. This scene felt strangely familiar. My wife, a pair of cold hands helped me up. Yang Ci was dressed in vibrant red wedding garments. His face bore a strange, morbid radiance. I could tell at a single glance that he was not the young Yang Ci. Red candles, dimly lit silk curtains. The ghost I had burned to death pressed a wine cup against my lips. The shadow enveloped me. On our wedding night that year, I regretted not coming. If I had drunk that cup of nuptial wine back then, could you and I have lasted long? I turned my face away in resistance. How is it you? Did you kill him? Yang Ci pinched my chin. Are you feeling sorry for me? He let out a low laugh. We are, after all, the same person. I count the sound of the night watchman's stick coming from outside the window. I didn't say anything. The hour of the tiger is about to pass. Yang Ci saw through my thoughts. He said he had imitated my handwriting and sent a message to Meng Changhuan. After much deliberation, I still wished to remain in the capital. I beg for your understanding. General, his eyes turned red. Meng Changhuan may return, but you cannot leave. I stared at him in a daze, trembling all over. You're insane. My tears fell down. Could it be that this life, lived over again, would still be the same? Yang Ci saw my tears, flustered. He knelt down before me. He wanted to wipe away my tears, but only made them fall faster. I'm sorry. His voice trembled. He found himself crying as well. I'm sorry, Jushin. I'm so sorry. Please, give me another chance. In this life, I will never betray you. I looked at him, groveling and begging word by word. I hate you. Yang Ci smiled with tears in his eyes. Then hate me, and never forget me. He leaned closer to me, forehead against forehead. Our tears mingled together. It's fine if I can't have your love. Having your hatred is fine too. His fingers slid into my hair, gripping the back of my head, forcing me to look directly into his tear-filled eyes. In this life, you can only be entangled with me, until death do us part. Could he actually shed tears? I wondered. At that moment I suddenly realized the one crying now is not him, it was actually the young Yang Ci. I watched as two expressions tore across Yang Ci's face. One moment was the madness of a vengeful spirit, the next was the dazed agony of a young man. The two souls seem unable to reach an agreement, struggling for control of this single body. Get out of here now, worthless. After all we've been through to get here, you still want to let her go. She said she hates you. Can't you hear her? She doesn't want to. So what? I'll force it anyway. Don't you want to? Yang Ci released me and gripped his own throat. While they were locked in fierce combat, I ran under the cover of night. I rode my horse down the long street. The hem of the wedding dress was too long, tangled in the stirrup. I bent down and tugged at it twice, but it wouldn't come out, so I just tore it off in one go. The air is dry. Mind the fire hazard. The night watchman, carrying a lantern and hunched over, passed by the mouth of the alley. Candlelight flickers in the darkness. The clapper sounds I once counted with tears are all left behind this time. No need to suffer waiting for dawn. I will catch up to the sun myself. Forward, forward. Shut up. We are different. Yang Ci writhed in agony. I'm telling you, I will never end up as pathetic as you. He gasped for breath, struggling to drive the dagger into his own chest. The moment the blood gushed out, the ghosts finally stopped fighting over it. The boy's body slumped limply to the ground. Finally, silence. At that moment, Yang Ci thought of the Shui Jushin she had once dreamed of. That was her from a past life. She neither cries nor laughs. Trapped in this square-back courtyard, she would silently waste her life away until death. Yang Ci thought, this shouldn't be her life. Shui Jushin, no one is stopping you this time. Let's go, and don't look back. Yang Ci's eyes were wide open, staring at the wide-open door. The night wind rushed in. The moment the red candle went out, the ghost wailed in sorrow. He had fought for so long, seizing this body, donning the wedding robe, lighting the dragon and phoenix candles. In the end, she still did not drink that cup of wine. The younger self finally learned to let go, but the ghost, living a second life, remained trapped in obsession, unable to turn back. In the long night, the wind is desolate. Only the hoarse laughter of the ghost remains, not sure if he was saying it for him to hear or just muttering to himself. You've fallen in love with her, Yang Ci. You won't rest in peace. This time, Yang Ci did not reply. Love, hate, and obsession, a tangled mess. The cold wind howled past. This is the deepest darkness before dawn. The night dew dampened the clothes, chilling to the touch. My thoughts grew clearer. The Shui family, the general's mansion, and the capital city were all left far behind me in the dim morning light. The outline of the city gate emerged, tall and silent. I didn't hesitate. I rushed out. The moment the horses' hooves crossed the city gate, it felt as if something behind me had snapped. Perhaps it is the umbilical cord of fate. I looked up at the moon on the open field. The moon, too, turned into a tiny star, no longer hanging above the deep courtyards of wealthy mansions. That tearful, mournful eye. Bamboo heart, oh bamboo heart. So this is how vast the sky and earth truly are. Under the 10-mile pavilion, a rider stands quietly, clad in silver armor. A long spear leans askew. The letter was quite convincing. Meng Changhuan sizes me up, travel-stained, yet with a bright expression. She raised an eyebrow in surprise. I was about to go back and fish you out. No need. I lifted my chin slightly. Just a little trouble. She didn't press further and tossed the water pouch to me. Drink. The water was cool, sliding down my throat. The violent heartbeat gradually calmed down. Only then did I realize it. Belatedly, daybreak arrived. The morning light stretched across the long night, transforming the world. Meng Changhuan mounted his horse in one smooth motion. Look back at me, leaving. Let's go. I smiled. Getting there is what matters. The past is not worth mentioning. The world is vast ahead. The dawn light is faint. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. I am the cherished memory of everyone in the capital. The female lead firmly believed that the male lead, who had reached the age of 20 yet remained unmarried, was waiting for her to come of age. Because of this, no matter how handsome, elegant, or noble her suitors were, she turned them all away. But she waited and waited, only to receive the news that the male lead and I had exchanged betrothal letters. She went mad, resorting to any means to climb into his bed, and even arranged for all the guests to coincidentally witness the scene. Bound by reputation, he married her, and I, his fiancé, was oppressed by the powerful and driven out of the capital. At the 10-mile pavilion, a steady stream of people came to see me off. I looked at the female lead clinging tightly behind him and suddenly laughed. Forced to leave? Not necessarily. On the day I was driven out of the capital, I knew that one day I would return with dignity. 3 years have passed in the blink of an eye. The invitation from the princess was handed to me by her maid. After reading it with lowered eyes, I dipped my brush in ink and wrote in reply, "Thank you for your concern, Princess. I will return to the capital soon and will surely attend the grand event." The flower appreciation banquet was held at the hibiscus pavilion of Princess Jaha's estate. As soon as I stepped into the garden, the lively chatter and laughter suddenly fell silent. Countless pairs of eyes turned and focused on me in unison. In the next moment, those reserved or radiant figures surged forward like a tide, surrounding me from all sides. "Sister Jiang, it really is Yao Yao who has returned, 3 years apart, and my sister's elegance surpasses even before." Their voices were like orioles and swallows, full of warmth and enthusiasm. What is the so-called white moonlight, if not merely that flawless, pristine moonlight in the hearts of noble sons? Of all the distinguished young ladies and daughters of military families in the capital, 8 or 9 out of 10 were once my bosom friends, with whom I shared countless intimate conversations. "It's been a long time, my dear sisters." I smiled and nodded to each of them, my eyes gentle and soft. 3 years had passed, and the letters from Jiangnan arrived in thick bundles, each one filled with their constant concern, so many that it was impossible to reply to them all. Princess Jaha pushed through the crowd, stepped forward, and firmly grasped my hand. Her bright eyes instantly misted over, and she spoke in a choked, complaining tone. "Yao Yao, you heartless one, you've been gone for 3 whole years, and your messages have been so sparse. If I hadn't swallowed my pride and gone to invite you, I'm afraid you would have long forgotten us, your old friends from the capital." She took my hand and looked me up and down, her tone both scolding and delighted. "Let me have a good look at you. You've lost a little weight, but your whole aura is even more captivating than before." All around, voices of agreement rose. Filled with sincere admiration, I gently patted her hand in return and said softly, "You've been so concerned for me, Princess. The mountains and roads are long, and letters are hard to send. That was my fault, but as soon as I received your invitation, I rushed back day and night." My gaze swept over the familiar faces, and my lips curved into a slight smile. "Besides, with the princess and all you sisters here in the capital, how could I ever dare to forget?" Just then, a faint stir came from the entrance. The lively atmosphere that had surrounded me moments before instantly cooled by a few degrees. The smiles on everyone's faces slightly stiffened, their gazes turning complex as they all looked in the same direction. The princess's grip on my hand tightened imperceptibly. She leaned closer to my ear, her voice lowered. "Yao Yao, do you know who else is at today's banquet?" Her words carried a hidden meaning as her gaze fell on the end of the path that had naturally cleared through the crowd. "I know." How could I not know? The smile on my lips deepened as I looked toward Shenyanshuan at the door, and of course, there was also the one who had forced me to leave the capital back then. 3 years ago I had just reached the age of 15, and my father was still the Vice Minister of Revenue. Although his official rank was not low, in the capital where the powerful and noble gathered, it was merely a middling position. Fortunately, my father had a reputation for integrity, and while our family background was not as prestigious as the top-ranking nobles, it was stable and respectable. Shenyanshuan was the heir of the Dingyuan Marquisate. He came from a noble background, possessed exceptional grace, and his appearance and demeanor were unmatched in the capital, making him the ideal match many young women dared not speak of openly. Among all the young masters from noble families, he was indeed the most outstanding one. At a spring banquet held in some mansion, amidst the lively clamor of the garden, with peach blossoms blooming in fiery splendor, he caught sight of me. I heard that he fell in love with me at first sight. After returning, he tossed and turned restlessly, and the very next day, he eagerly sent someone to inquire about me. Hearing of my reputation in the capital, he felt even more delighted. The young man's affection burned so fiercely it couldn't be hidden, nor was there any need to hide it. I merely gave him a faint smile, and a delicate blush spread across his jade-like face, even the tips of his ears tinged with the color of sunset clouds. He treated me with genuine sincerity and had even made solemn vows to me. In this life, there is only Yao Yao for me, no one else. With both families being well matched in status and sharing mutual affection, the marriage was naturally settled. We quickly exchanged betrothal letters and completed the engagement ceremony, waiting only for an auspicious date to be chosen for the wedding. Yet this happy union had somehow displeased someone else. Qiu Xuezi is the legitimate daughter of the current prime minister. With the new emperor ascending the throne, Prime Minister Qiu's power has grown immensely, and she has been pampered like a precious jewel. She has been infatuated with Shen Yanxuan for many years, stubbornly believing that his delay in marrying was because he was waiting for her to come of age. Upon learning of our engagement, years of obsession and resentment instantly drove her to lose her reason. She had completely lost her mind. At a banquet, she found her opportunity. She obtained a potent and dangerous secret medicine from the palace, and bribed a maid of the host family. She even used my name to lure Shen Yanxuan, who was attending the banquet, to a secluded room. He had drunk some wine, and his mind was not entirely clear. Upon hearing that I had invited him, he entered that room without a second thought. She succeeded in her plan and became intimately involved with him, but that wasn't enough. She even went so far as to ruin her own reputation, timing it perfectly. Someone deliberately led the full hall of guests to the door of that side room. At that moment, everyone was chatting and laughing when suddenly, ambiguous sounds were heard. The married women, who were already familiar with such matters, immediately changed their expressions. Everyone exchanged glances, and the host's face turned ashen with anger. At our own well-intended banquet, such filthy deeds have actually occurred. Several frivolous young masters, never ones to shy away from trouble, pushed open the door of the side room with mocking laughter. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Shen Yanxuan lay unconscious on the couch, while Qiu Xuezi's hair was disheveled, her gaze dazed and infatuated. The two were entangled in passionate intimacy, completely oblivious to the world around them, as if no one else existed. Ah! Someone's startled cry pierced the air, exposing the identities of the two. A familiar girl first glanced at me with concern, her heart aching, unsure how to comfort me. Disgusting filth, you've sullied my eyes. The only daughter of the general's household, known for her fiery temper, let out a cold laugh at the sight and said with disgust, "What are you still standing there for? Fetch cold water and douse this shameless pair of dogs to wake them up." A servant immediately brought water and splashed it fiercely onto the entangled couple on the bed. Splash! The cold water poured over their heads, drenching the impassioned pair on the bed to the bone. Shen Yanxuan jolted all over, his muddled mind finally clearing. He abruptly looked up, took in the scene before him, and his face instantly darkened like ink. Qiu Xuezi timidly hid behind him, hurriedly pulling on her scattered clothes, her eyes brimming with tears. Looking utterly pitiful, Shen Yanxuan clenched his fists, clearly realizing he had been set up. But as he glanced sideways and saw Qiu Xuezi's tear-streaked face, his heart softened slightly, probably thinking she was innocent too. With a touch of chivalry, he turned to shield her from the crowd's gaze. At that moment, he looked up and saw me in the crowd, his expression instantly changing. He hastily pushed Qiu Xuezi away and said urgently, "Yao Yao, I only came here because you said you wanted to see me. I am disappointed in my heart." Having committed such a disgraceful act, he not only failed to reflect on his own faults, but his first reaction was to drag me into it, placing me in the eye of the storm. I took half a step back and interrupted him. "Be cautious with your words, young master. How important is a young woman's reputation? I have always adhered to the rules of propriety. Although we are engaged, before the formal ceremony takes place, how could I be so shameless as to engage in such improper conduct?" He froze, as if stung by the coldness in my eyes. Qiu Xuezi, seeing this, had tears welling up in her eyes. I was also lured here by someone. Sun Yenshuan frowned deeply and immediately said sternly, "Investigate. I want to see who dares to scheme against me." He spoke with certainty, but failed to notice the fleeting guilt in the eyes of the pitiful figure behind him. I kindly reminded them to get fully dressed first. The maid who led the way was quickly singled out. The maid knelt on the ground, scared out of her wits. "Speak, who sent you?" the maidservant stammered, but Cho Shuizi kept glancing at me. She seemed to understand and frantically pointed at me. "It was her," I sneered. "Do you know who I am? Would I personally deliver my own fiancé to someone else's bed?" Princess Jiahe, seeing me being slandered, grew even more furious. Without waiting for anyone else to react, she immediately ordered, "Guards, give her 20 lashes. Keep beating her until she tells the truth." The board had only fallen 3 or 5 times when the maid couldn't bear it any longer and cried out. It was Miss Chiu. She told me to spread false news to lure the young master here. The medicine was also given by her. The entire hall erupted in an uproar. Cho Shuizi's face turned deathly pale as she frantically looked toward Sun Yenshuan, only to find his gaze icy cold, without a trace of pity left. Cho Shuizi was exposed too quickly, and the Cho family had no time to cover it up. But the Cho family was powerful, and although everyone knew the truth, no one dared to accuse her openly. Seeing that her scheme had been uncovered, Cho Shuizi simply stopped pretending with tearful eyes. She grabbed Sun Yenshuan's sleeve, her voice choked with sobs. "Brother Yenshuan, I just like you too much." Sun Yenshuan instinctively looked at me, as if seeking my understanding. Preposterous. Princess Jiahe could not stand such despicable methods. She said, "Miss Chiu, as the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister, you have actually resorted to such lowly actions. You have utterly disgraced the dignity of women. In the past, I saw you as willful and capricious, but today you've changed your nature. I thought you were frightened by this incident, but I never expected it was all your own doing. For the sake of a man, you would even disregard your own reputation. I have truly witnessed something remarkable today." Cho Shuizi's face turned pale, and then she bit her lip in grievance, saying, "Why must the princess be so aggressive? I have also lost my innocence." Princess Jiahe, seeing her pitiful appearance, felt an inexplicable surge of anger rise within her. I calmed the furious princess and looked at Cho Shuizi, speaking slowly and deliberately. "You bribed the maid, drugged and schemed, ruined someone's marriage, and now why put on this pitiful act? Sun Yenshuan, do you still think she is innocent?" Sun Yenshuan was left speechless by the question. Seeing him like this, I closed my eyes for a moment, then turned to Princess Jiahe and the young lady of the Jiang family, nodding slightly in gratitude. Finally, I bowed to the master of the house. "I deeply apologize for disturbing the peace of your esteemed residence today. The matter that follows has nothing to do with the Jiang family anymore. Farewell, Yaro Yaro." Sun Yenshuan grew anxious, stepping forward to try and stop me. "Please, let me explain." I sidestepped to avoid his hand. "Since you have already been intimate with someone else, you should take responsibility." Upon returning home, I told my father the whole story. My father was furious and immediately wrote a letter to return the betrothal gifts from the Shun family. Although the matter caused quite a stir, it was eventually suppressed. The maid died suddenly of a violent illness the very next day, leaving no other witnesses to protect their daughter's reputation. The Cho family pressured the Shun family, demanding that Sun Yenshuan marry Cho Shuizi immediately. Cho Shuizi got her wish and married Sun Yenshuan afterward. I too felt a chill run down my spine. Fortunately, she had drugged herself and hadn't thought to harm my reputation and ruin the marriage. At this point, I thought the matter had nothing to do with me anymore. Still, I couldn't help but feel disheartened that Sun Yenshuan had agreed to the marriage so easily. My once bright and noble fiancé had, in an instant, become mired in the mud, filthy and repulsive, leaving only disgust in my heart. I had long since cast him completely from my mind, but I never expected that I had underestimated the shamelessness of the Cho family that day. The eldest son of the Cho family, who was known for his fine reputation, came to my door in person. He stood before me, his face bearing the aloof and noble restraint typical of a scion from an aristocratic family. "Miss Jiang, I've Heard that your father has been handling a great deal of official business in the Ministry of Revenue lately, and it seems to be causing him some distress. My father's disciples and former subordinates are spread throughout the court and beyond. If you need any assistance, it would be but a small effort for me. My mind went blank, and my fingertips turned cold in an instant. His words were veiled, but I understood immediately. No wonder father has been frowning so often lately, locking himself in his study as soon as he returns home. With piles of official documents on his desk and a few more strands of white hair at his temples from worried, I asked him several times, but he only forced a smile and waved his hand. It's nothing, just some official matters. You don't need to worry. Yao. He has always been like this, bearing even the greatest difficulties on his own, never willing to add unnecessary worries to his family. So it was the Chiu family after all, with Chiu Xiong holding power and countless disciples under his influence. Tripping up a mere vice minister of revenue was as easy as turning over his hand, but the Chiu family never expected that my father, out of deep love for his daughter, would withstand the pressure so resolutely and keep me completely in the dark. They finally shed their hypocritical facade and sent this gentleman to personally step in and carry out this act of coercion. The man before them was still spouting lofty words. My sister's request is simple. She only wishes for some peace and happiness in the early days of her marriage. The capital is prosperous, but it is also noisy. I've heard that the Jiangnan region is rich and charming, with misty rains that are most nurturing. Why not move there, Miss Jiang, and change your state of mind? Of course, if the young lady insists on staying. Given that your father is an upright official, I fear he will have to work even harder in the future, and it may be difficult for him to have a moment of peaceful rest. Otherwise, if you make a single misstep and implicate the entire family in prison, what should we do then? At this point, the threat was already glaringly obvious. Hearing this, I suddenly found it laughable. What wrong have I, Jiang Xiao, done? What wrong have my parents and family done? Our family merely arranged a marriage of equal social standing. Why must we suffer such an unjust calamity just because he, Chiu Shuesong, dotes on his sister? Does that give him the right to frame and persecute others so shamelessly? I know what he fears. He fears that I will remain in the capital, like a thorn deeply embedded between his sister and her husband. He fears even more that my presence will constantly remind everyone in the capital of how his sister used underhanded means to secure this marriage. Yet, instead of making any amends, they dare to threaten me with my father's career and the safety of my entire family, just to force me to leave my homeland. It was clearly his sister who had no sense of shame and forcibly took another woman's betrothed. I never even held a grudge against them. Yet the Chiu family, in their audacity, actually intended to drive me, the victim, out of the capital. I still held a sliver of hope in my heart. I refused to believe that, under the clear sky and at the feet of the Son of Heaven, the Chiu family could truly dominate everything and act without regard for law or justice. Suppressing the surging anger, I called for the servant and had him thrown out. When my father returned home and learned of this, he clapped his hands in approval, saying I had done the right thing. Yet, I still felt somewhat uneasy inside. Sure enough, the next day, when my father was on his way to court, the shaft of his carriage suddenly snapped. Father broke a leg and was helped back to the mansion by a servant, still forcing himself to comfort me. Fortunately, father's bones were not shattered, and with a few months of proper rest, he would recover without issue. But how could a perfectly fine carriage suddenly fail? I felt a chill run through my entire body, as if I had fallen into an icy abyss. This is clearly a warning from the Chiu family. A few more pieces of bad news followed. I don't dare to gamble anymore. I can't afford to gamble with my father's future, let alone the lives of my entire family. If I don't leave, the Chiu family might truly go mad and bring ruin and death upon the Jiang family. That day, I went alone to find Chiu Shuesong. So, Miss Jiang, have you made up your mind? He still maintained that gentle and refined gentlemanly demeanor. I used almost all my strength to restrain the impulse to slap him. From childhood to adulthood, I was also raised with the doting affection of my family. I had never suffered such humiliation before. I was so angry that my whole body trembled, and tears uncontrollably streamed from the corners of my eyes. Burning rage consumed my entire being, and a seed of hatred began to sprout within my heart. I lifted my eyes and looked at Cho Shuesong's hypocritical face, my knuckles turning white from clenching. I bit my lip hard and said, "Okay, I'll go." As the beauty shed tears, a flicker of pity flashed in the man's eyes, but then he remembered his younger sister at home, who had been weeping all day long, unable to find any joy. All my sister wants is to have that man all to herself. Such a humble wish. How could he, as her elder brother, bear not to fulfill it? He hardened his heart, delivered his final words, and turned to leave. "Miss Jiang, if you must blame someone, blame yourself for not knowing your place and becoming engaged to the man my sister loves. That is your sin." "Yao, Miss Jiang, it's been a while since we last met." A low, restrained voice interrupted my memories. I looked up to see Shen Yenshuan standing just 3 steps away. His eyes were filled with longing as he gazed upon the face he had dreamed of day and night. Young Master Shen, seeing me so distant, a pained expression crossed his brow. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly as if 1,000 words were stuck in his throat. "My husband," a soft, slightly panicked voice cut in. Cho Shuetsi was seen hurrying over, lifting the hem of her skirt, and quickly linking arms with Shen Yenshuan. "My lord, why are you here? I've been looking for you for so long." She feigned intimacy, yet her gaze dared not meet Shen Yenshuan's eyes. Seeing him still staring at me in a daze, she finally followed his line of sight. The moment their eyes met, the color drained from her face, her eyes filled with disbelief and shock, and she immediately lowered her head as if scalded. I saw her fingers gripping Shen Yenshuan's sleeve turning white at the knuckles, with no trace of the pride and boldness that once seemed ready to leap from the corners of her eyes and brows. Shen Yenshuan frowned slightly and calmly withdrew his hand. She forced a smile. "So Miss Jiang has returned to the capital." Princess Jiahe sneered. "The way the consort speaks, it's as if the capital has become some kind of dragon's den or tiger's lair." Unable to tolerate Yao Yao, Lord Jiang is now the Minister of Revenue appointed by His Majesty. As the legitimate daughter of the minister, Yao Yao no longer needs to worry about certain people relying on their father's and brother's power to repeat their despicable and dirty tricks. Upon hearing this, several noble ladies nearby couldn't help but cover their lips and chuckle softly. Everyone knows that Cho Shuetsi's methods of marrying into the Marquis household were far from honorable, and she even used her family's influence to force me out of the capital. For this reason, Shen Yenshuan had been cold and distant toward her for many years. Even when someone publicly humiliated her, he would only watch indifferently, or even add fuel to the fire. If it weren't for the lingering prestige of the Cho family, she would have long lost her position as the wife of the heir. I've heard that the wife of the heir is exceptionally skilled in the qin. Since today is such a rare gathering, why not grace us with a performance? A noble lady with whom I had some past history suddenly spoke up, a hint of mischief in her eyes. The proposal was immediately met with several malicious echoes of agreement. Cho Shuetsi's face turned deathly pale, feeling as if she had been subjected to an immense wave of malice. This was clearly meant to make her perform like a court musician, treating her as nothing more than an object for others' amusement. She looked toward Shen Yenshuan as if pleading for help, only to see him lower his gaze and continue drinking, as if he hadn't heard a thing. Under the scorching gazes of the crowd, she bit her lip in humiliation until it bled, moving to the qin table as if being driven. Her fingers trembled violently as she plucked the strings, producing a jarring, discordant sound that was completely out of tune. With a sharp twang, the qin string snapped in response. She jerked her hand back, her fingertip cut by the sharp broken string, beads of blood welling up. She stared blankly at the broken string, then looked up anxiously at her surroundings, her heart aching with bitterness. Someone couldn't hold back their laughter, which soon sparked a wave of snickers and disdain. "TSK, if you didn't want to play, you could have just said so. Why force yourself to produce such an unbearable noise? You've only ruined everyone's mood for nothing." "Exactly. You've not only wasted the princess's prized Jiaowei qin but also offended our ears. If I had known it would be like this, I might as well have hired musicians from outside. At least their tunes would be somewhat pleasant to the ear." Shen Yenshuan finally lifted his gaze, his cold and fierce dark eyes fixed on her, chilling to the bone. Enough, if you can't play well, then stop. What are you doing standing there making a fool of yourself? You're nothing but a nuisance, get out of here. She raised her head, meeting Shen Yanxuan's disgusted gaze, her eyes brimming with tears. If it were before, who would dare to humiliate the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister like this? But now, with the new emperor in power, Prime Minister Qiu's influence has greatly diminished, and he can no longer control everything as he once did, and she herself, because of what happened back then, has long been disgraced among the noble ladies' circle for years. She has lowered herself and acted with gentle affection, just to catch his attention, gradually wearing down her own spirit. I watched coldly as she endured the humiliation in silence, thinking back to the proud and radiant Miss Qiu from 3 years ago, and felt nothing but irony in my heart. Brother Yanxuan and I are so fated. If you hadn't gotten in the way, he would have only fallen for me. I really don't know what Brother Yanxuan sees in you. Your family background is inferior to mine, your talents are no match for mine. All you have is that seductive face of yours, bewitching the young masters of noble families. A woman as fickle and faithless as you is simply unworthy of him. Go far away, disappear from Brother Yanxuan and me, and never return to the capital for the rest of your life. There was a time when she was doted on by her father and brothers, spoiled and willful. Even when she used the most despicable means to climb into Shen Yanxuan's bed, she could still hold her head high and show not a shred of remorse when facing me, the victim. Now that she has fallen to the point where she endures ridicule without daring to retort, does she regret scheming so meticulously to force me to leave the capital back then? My husband, Qiu Shuizi, awkwardly returned to Shen Yanxuan's side, timidly calling out his name as she reached out to tug at his sleeve. Shen Yanxuan, however, abruptly pulled away as if avoiding something filthy. His gaze toward me grew increasingly fervent, his voice hoarse. Yao Yao, please show some restraint, Your Highness, your wife is still watching. I glanced sideways and indeed saw the pain surfacing in Qiu Shuizong's eyes. Shen Yanxuan's eyes were filled with pleading. May I have a word in private? I let out a light laugh and tilted my head slightly. Does the heir apparent think there is anything left for us to say? Even though I knew that just a single ambiguous word at this moment could make Qiu Shuizi suffer unbearably, but I cherish my reputation and don't want to do that. It's too cheap, and it tarnishes the 3 years of patience and planning I've endured. My revenge is not as simple as stealing a man in the end. I've always thought Qiu Shuizi was foolish. If a deceased white moonlight is a sure kill, then a white moonlight forced to leave for a distant land, how could it not leave one longing and unforgettable? The banquet was halfway through. Qiu Shuizi quietly huddled in a corner, her gaze fixed intently on me, who was being showered with attention. She didn't understand. It's been 3 years already, so why is everyone's gaze still following me? Those noble ladies surround me, chatting and laughing, as close to me as ever, as if I had never left the capital. Could it be that 3 years of time couldn't erase the fond memories everyone has of me? Even her husband still can't forget me. At this thought, she felt as if her heart were being pierced by a knife. The imperial decree has arrived. Everyone hurriedly left their seats and knelt down in a flurry. I, too, prepared to kneel down along with the others. The eunuch delivering the imperial decree stepped forward quickly, smiling as he gave me a symbolic hand of support. Miss Jiang, there is no need for such formalities. His Majesty has specifically instructed that you may receive the decree standing. The people around us looked on in astonishment. I lowered my gaze, understanding clearly in my heart this was his way of showing his support for me in front of everyone. By the decree of heaven and the mandate of the emperor, it is proclaimed, Jiang Shiyao, daughter of Jiang Mingyuan, Minister of Revenue, has rendered meritorious service in disaster relief in Jiangnan. She is hereby granted the title of Minghua County Mistress, bestowed with 100 taels of gold and 10 bolts of brocade. So ordered. After the imperial edict was read, I received it with both hands. Recalling the bold words in that person's letter before returning to the capital, I couldn't help but let a smile curve my eyes. Your subject's daughter receives the decree and offers thanks for this grace. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of Qiu Xuezi's pale face and Shen Yanxuan's shocked gaze. A cold laugh rose within my heart. Princess Jiahe was the first to step forward to offer congratulations, her smile as radiant as a flower. Yao Yao, now we should address you as the county princess. How did this come about? I smiled faintly and explained. During the flood in Jiangnan, I saw the plight of the refugees and felt pity for them, so I donated some silver and provisions for disaster relief. I also assisted the government in resettling the refugees and building dams. I never expected His Majesty to remember it, Qiu Xuezi said in disbelief. Impossible. You, a woman who was driven out of the capital, in such a dangerous place like Jiangnan. I cast a cold glare at her. Yes, back then the Jiangnan region was plagued by floods, with corpses of the starved lying everywhere and bandits running rampant. Why did your Qiu family insist on sending me to such a dangerous place? Jiangnan was prosperous, with misty willows and painted bridges, apricot blossoms, and drizzling rain. Under normal circumstances, it would indeed have been a pleasant destination. But at that time, Jiangnan was ravaged by floods, epidemics were rampant, and bandits were running wild. As a weak woman, if I hadn't chosen the right path, how could I have stayed safe in that living hell? The Qiu family was determined to break me there. They hoped I would be abducted by villains and have my reputation ruined. Even if I managed to return to the capital unscathed, after a few years, I would have become an old maid no one cared about. The ones who come to seek my hand in marriage are either the dregs of society or those wanting me to be a stepmother or fill the role of a second wife. The Qiu family truly has a clever plan up their sleeve. Her face pale, she shook her head in panic. No, it's not like that. I didn't mean to, Shen Yanxuan said with disgust. Enough, if you've done it, you've done it. Why pretend to be innocent? He finished speaking and, without waiting for Qiu Xuezi, turned and walked away, not even sparing her a single glance. Princess Jiahe sneered. Some people go to great lengths to snatch things that will never warm to them, only to end up hurting themselves. Another noblewoman covered her mouth with a light laugh. Ah, isn't that the truth? After all, it's a marriage she snatched. No matter how unbearable it is, it's a consequence of her own actions. She'll have to endure it for the rest of her life, even if she has to kneel through it. Qiu Xuezi clenched her fists tightly. She glanced at me, surrounded by the crowd, then looked at Shen Yanxuan, who had left without a backward glance, and stumbled as she rushed after him. Princess Jiahe pretended to be helpless and complained. Ah, why did she run away? She hasn't paid for my broken chin yet. After the flower viewing banquet, I returned to the Jiang residence. My father, mother, and elder sister stood on the steps, their eyes brimming with tears as they looked at me. Back is good, my dear Yarrow Yarrow has suffered. My heart ached with bitterness, but I feigned lightness and cheerfulness, coaxing them into beaming with joy. The next day, I had to go to the palace to express my gratitude. The carriage wheels came to a halt halfway, stopped by someone. I lifted my hand to pull aside the curtain slightly. It was Qiu Xuezong. Behind him stood Qiu Xuezi, her face haggard, her head slightly bowed, looking utterly aggrieved. I raised an eyebrow. It seemed she had once again brought her brother to settle the score for her. Qiu Xuezong affectionately patted his younger sister's head and said softly, "Don't worry, your brother is here to handle everything." Then, he looked up at me, a faint smile curling at the corners of his lips. "Miss Jiang, it's been a while." I remained seated in the carriage, showing no intention of getting out, and replied indifferently, "Mr. Qiu, what brings you to stop my carriage in the middle of the street?" Qiu Xuezi stared at me with red, swollen eyes, her voice trembling with tears. "Jiang Xiao, why have you come back? Do you intend to ruin my marriage and rekindle your past with Brother Yanxuan? Let me make it clear, don't even think about it. Brother Yanxuan is my husband now. We've exchanged vows before heaven and earth. We are a rightful, recognized couple. No matter how unwilling you are, no matter how you try to seduce him, you will only remain a hidden mistress, unseen in the light. Even if you somehow manage to enter the Marquis's estate, you would still be nothing but a lowly concubine." Such vulgar insults, paired with her delicate, tear-streaked appearance, made it seem as though I were the one bullying her. Qiu Xuezong frowned and pretended to scold. Shuizi, don't be rude, yet his eyes clearly held indulgence. And he even turned to me and said, Miss Jiang, my sister is straightforward by nature. I hope you'll forgive her, however, what she said is not without reason, since you've already left the capital. Why come back and stir up trouble? I quietly watched the siblings play off each other and suddenly smiled. I lifted the carriage curtain and jumped down nimbly, striding over to Qiu Shuesong in a few steps. Qiu Shuesong was momentarily stunned by my sudden, imposing approach. Smack! I slapped Qiu Shuesong hard across the face. Brother, Qiu Shuizi exclaimed in shock. Rushing over to check on Qiu Shuesong's face, I didn't even glance at her, and with a backhanded slap, I struck Qiu Shuizi's face hard. Smack! Qiu Shuizi was stunned, and it took a moment before she covered her face and screamed, You dare hit us!" I shook my slightly numb wrist and sneered, "I've wanted to slap them for 3 years. Qiu Shuesong finally snapped back to reality, his eyes blazing with fury. What do you mean I hit you, so what? Do I need to pick a special day for it? Jiang Shiyao, Qiu Shuesong gritted his teeth. You assaulted the son of a court official in public. I will surely impeach your father for failing to properly educate his daughter. I let out a scornful laugh and glanced up at the sky. Feel free to file your impeachment, Lord Qiu. However, I am due at the palace today to express my gratitude for the imperial favor. If I am delayed and His Majesty holds it against us, can your Qiu family bear the consequences? I watched with satisfaction as Qiu Shuesong's face turned from red to green, then from green to pale. He gritted his teeth tightly, not daring to utter any more threats. I let out a cold snort, no longer looking at the wretched siblings, and turned to board the carriage. The carriage curtain fell, and the carriage started moving again. Compared to 3 years ago, when I was secretly brought into the palace by the hidden guards in the dead of night, this time, the palace gates swung wide open, and the eunuch in attendance greeted me outside, leading me openly and honorably along the palace path. 3 years ago, when I was forced to leave the capital, I was indeed filled with resentment, but after calming down, I came to understand, rather than wallowing in self-pity, it's better to make those who harmed me pay the price. At that time, the floods in Jiangnan were severe, and the court took the matter very seriously. They allocated substantial disaster relief funds, but the money seemed to vanish without a trace, and the situation only worsened. My intuition told me there was something deeply suspicious going on. The official in charge of Jiangnan happened to be a favored protege of Minister Qiu, but as a mere woman, how could I possibly challenge the colossal power entrenched in Jiangnan? In a moment of desperation, I thought of that warm, smooth jade pendant. It had been secretly sent by Xie Chen once many years ago. He was still the 6th prince in the palace. His status was awkward, his birth mother lowly, and even his allotted food was often withheld. I followed my mother into the palace for a banquet and accidentally came across a young boy curled up behind a rockery, starving. Feeling pity, I quietly took some pastries from the palace banquet and slipped them to him. He froze, looking at me warily, but eventually snatched the pastries and devoured them ravenously. From then on, whenever I occasionally entered the palace, I always found a way to bring him some non-perishable food. We rarely spoke, yet there was a certain understanding between us. Later, like a dormant dragon lying in wait, he ascended the throne amidst a storm of bloodshed. Not long after his enthronement, he sent someone to deliver a jade pendant, saying, "Should you ever find yourself in difficulty, you may use this token to seek me out." I took the jade pendant and went to a seemingly ordinary tavern, a hidden outpost he had left behind. Not long after, I was secretly brought into the imperial palace. The hall was brightly lit by candlelight, and the young emperor sat solemnly behind the imperial desk. He lifted his gaze to look at me, his voice low and deep. "The matter of the Qiu family, I am already aware. I once said that with this jade pendant, I would grant you one promise. Now that you have come bearing the pendant, is it to ask me to intervene and resolve the predicament of your Jiang family? Does your Majesty wish to send guards to ensure Minister Jiang's safety and secure his official career? Or does your Majesty intend to promote his position to strengthen his influence?" He paused, then added meaningfully, "Or do you wish to enter the palace and become the empress?" I was so startled I nearly bit my tongue. unable to comprehend why he would consider this last point. His Majesty has yet to take a wife, and the rear palace remains empty. The court is embroiled in endless disputes over the matter of establishing an empress. In such a situation, it's either that one is incapable, or their heart belongs to another. How could I dare to aspire to the position of empress? I immediately shook my head and knelt down, replying, "Your Majesty, it is neither." "Oh," he seemed somewhat surprised, leaning forward slightly. "Then what do you want?" "I beseech your Majesty to grant me permission to journey to Jiangnan." Jiangnan, his eyebrows lifted slightly. The floods in Jiangnan have yet to subside. It is hardly a suitable place for leisure at the moment. The Qiu family sent you here with malicious intent. Are you truly willing to walk right into their trap? That is precisely why I must go. I lifted my head, my gaze burning as I met his scrutinizing eyes. I am willing to pledge my loyalty to your Majesty, to go to Jiangnan and uncover evidence of Chancellor Qiu's embezzlement of disaster relief funds and his formation of cliques for personal gain. With just you, he smiled faintly, as if amused. Just me, a woman. I did not flinch. The Qiu family sent me, a mere woman, to Jiangnan because they believed a weak woman like me couldn't stir up any trouble. They look down on women, and that is their greatest weakness. As the words fell, the imperial study fell into complete silence. I felt a burning gaze fixed on me and couldn't help but nervously clutch my sleeves. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps began, gradually drawing closer. A furry head appeared in my lowered line of sight. Startled, I lost my balance and fell to the ground. Looking up in astonishment to finally see the appearance of this emperor, his features were exquisitely beautiful, with eyebrows like ink paintings and eyes as cold as stars. The bright yellow dragon robe made his face appear even more handsome, like jade. At this moment, he was half crouched in front of me, tilting his head slightly, a few strands of his dark hair falling down, watching my disheveled state with great interest. "I have acted improperly, Your Majesty. I beg for your forgiveness." I hurriedly pleaded for mercy, yet he smiled, his eyes curving as he reached out to help me up, his fingertips warm. Stunned, he looked at my frightened and unsettled expression, a hint of mischief glinting in his eyes. I flustered and lowered my gaze. He withdrew his hand and let out a light laugh. "What you seek, I grant. I will dispatch a team of trusted personnel to accompany and ensure your safety, guaranteeing your well-being in Jiangnan. Proceed with confidence. I await your good news here in the capital." As my thoughts settled, I found myself already at the imperial study. Xie Chen, seeing me just a few steps away, quickened his pace only to halt abruptly, across that neither too long nor too short distance. His gaze deepened as he softly called out, "A Yao." This sound seemed to instantly break the distance that had been built over 3 years of correspondence. During those 3 years in Jiangnan, most of the letters in the residence were sent by him. The letters initially contained official and businesslike confidential reports, with every word reflecting the emperor's calmness and strategic planning. Later, they began to include snippets of daily life and interesting anecdotes from the capital. Finally, those words became lingering and scorching, like the continuous spring rain of the Jiangnan region. He even had the audacity to come to Jiangnan, all because I casually mentioned how exceptionally beautiful the peach blossoms were there. It was simply reckless. A dignified ruler of a nation, risking his safety to leave the capital just to see a few peach blossoms. I was so furious I nearly called him a tyrant in public, but when I met his smiling eyes, I could only grit my teeth and hide him in my temporary residence, terrified of being discovered. To this day, I still don't understand how things ended up like this. Those letters carried by wild geese, how did they eventually turn the bond between ruler and subject into such an indescribable sentiment? "Your Majesty." I lowered my gaze and was about to bow when he suddenly stepped forward, gripping my wrist firmly, a hint of displeasure in his eyes. His thumb gently stroked my slightly reddened palm. "Does your hand hurt?" My palm was tickled by his rubbing, and I instinctively tried to pull my hand back, but he held it even tighter. After tugging a couple of times without success, I simply let him have his way. Xie Chen turned and ordered the palace attendants to fetch some medicine, then pulled me to sit on the soft couch and personally applied the ointment for me. There's no need to do it yourself. His phoenix eyes held a hint of indulgence and helplessness. If you want to hit someone, just have the maids do it for you. I couldn't help but laugh. Only by doing it myself will I feel satisfied. However, tomorrow, the memorials from Chancellor Chio's faction accusing me of arrogance and tyranny will likely pile up on your imperial desk. Xie Chen looked up at me, his eyes shimmering with a faint, teasing smile. I knew you would say that. He gently released my hand and stood up, his eyes filled with an inviting temptation and anticipation. Tomorrow at the morning court, you should come too. Stand personally in the Hall of Golden Chimes, present their crimes with your own hands, and seek justice for yourself and the people. All right, I was slightly taken aback, although from our 3 years of correspondence, I had long known he was not the kind of rigid and conservative ruler. He appreciated my wisdom and tacitly allowed me to lay my plans in Jiangnan, but to let a woman step into the Hall of Golden Chimes, the very heart of supreme power, and personally participate in the impeachment of the current Prime Minister. Was he not afraid of the historian's harsh judgments, or the criticism of the people? But this temptation is far too great. It's not about hiding in the shadows to gather evidence, nor is it about using others to bring down my enemies. Instead, it's about standing upright in the light, declaring their crimes, and personally putting an end to this grudge. The desire for personal vengeance burned in my chest, and I heard my own voice say, yes. Xie Chen smiled like the first thaw of ice and snow. The sudden break of spring waters, his handsome features relaxed, the curve of his lips genuine in that moment. It was as if he had shed all the depth of an emperor and reverted to the youth behind the rockery, the one whose eyes had flashed with light when he accepted my pastries. He suddenly leaned in close and whispered in my ear, I await your sweeping victory tomorrow. A warm breath brushed past the tip of my ear, making my earlobes heat up instantly. I jerked backward abruptly, nearly tumbling off the soft couch. Xie Chen swiftly caught me by the waist, letting out a low chuckle. What are you hiding from? It's not like I'm going to eat you. Afterward, he insisted I stay in the palace for a meal across from me. His gaze carried a scorching intensity, almost tangible as it lingered on my face and body. I can't eat any more of this meal. I felt as if sitting on pins and needles, hurriedly took a few bites, then excused myself, claiming there were matters to attend to at the residence. Xie Chen didn't stop me, but as I turned to leave, he casually remarked, Ah Yao, remember to wear your county princess court attire tomorrow. I paused in my steps, responded softly, and then quickly walked away without looking back. It could almost be described as a hasty escape. The next day at the morning court, Minister Chio indeed impeached my father for failing to properly educate his daughter. Minister Chio's supporters swarmed in, echoing his sentiments one after another. What's more, they even urged His Majesty to retract his decree, strip me of my county princess title, and set the record straight. Father immediately retorted sarcastically, if we're talking about failing to teach one's daughter properly, who in the entire court of civil and military officials could surpass Chancellor Chio? You, Chancellor Chio, struck where it hurt, flushed red with anger. Jiang Mingyuan, don't you dare change the subject. Today we're discussing your daughter's act of violence in the streets. If the Chio family hadn't gone too far in their bullying, how could my son have ended up like this? Sophistry. In an instant, the Golden Luan Hall became a battlefield of words, with new grudges and old grievances. Officials from both factions argued until their faces were red and they were at a complete impasse. Seeing that the argument had gone on long enough, Xie Chen finally raised his hand slightly. The entire hall fell silent in an instant, announcing, the county princess of Minghua. The palace doors slowly opened, holding thick stacks of evidence of crimes. I stepped into the court for the first time as a woman. The morning sun just pierced through the clouds, stretching my shadow long and slender. Qiu Xiong was greatly alarmed and hurriedly knelt to block the way. Your Majesty must not. The Golden Luan Hall is the sacred court of state affairs. How can a woman be allowed to enter without permission? A hen crowing at dawn signals the ruin of the household. This is an omen of a nation's downfall. Your Majesty. Xie Chen's eyes turned cold instantly. I sneered. Why is Chancellor Qiu in such a hurry? As I spoke, I knelt heavily and raised the case file high above my head. I, your subject, have been ordered to thoroughly investigate the corruption case in Jiangnan. Here is solid evidence of Chancellor Qiu forming cliques for personal gain and embezzling disaster relief funds. I calmly and methodically presented the evidence it was densely covered with. Records of how Minister Qiu had embezzled disaster relief funds and pocketed the silver allocated by the court for river embankment repairs. There were also confidential letters written in Minister Qiu's own hand, as well as notes in which he hinted to his protégés that I must be killed in Jiangnan. I engaged in a heated debate with the scholars and officials, definitively sealing Minister Qiu's guilt. The officials who had originally supported Minister Qiu turned pale, their faces drenched in cold sweat. Minister Qiu, what do you have to say for yourself? Xie Chen's eyes were icy as he threw the evidence of guilt directly at Minister Qiu's head. This is a frame-up, Your Majesty, a complete frame-up. Qiu Xiong looked at the familiar pieces of evidence, fell to his knees with a thud, and trembled all over like a sieve. The evidence is conclusive, and the crime is unforgivable. Guards, Xie Chen ordered the search and seizure of the Prime Minister's residence in just 2 hours. The Imperial Guards carried out hundreds of boxes of jewels, calligraphy, and paintings from the Qiu residence, not to mention the piles of gold ingots, far exceeding what Minister Qiu's official salary should have been, enough to rival the wealth of a nation. Minister Qiu's face turned ashen as he collapsed to the ground, completely defeated. That very day, the entire Qiu family was thrown into prison. The threats Qiu Shuisong once made to me had finally come full circle, falling upon his own family. Only Qiu Shuizi, because the disaster did not extend to married daughters, was able to remain safe. After the dust settled, my father began to worry about my marriage. Although he had now been promoted to minister and was favored by the emperor, the malice the Qiu family had shown back then had ultimately come true. Now, at 20 years old, I was considered an old maid among the noble ladies of the capital. Father sifted through the eligible young masters from noble families in his mind over and over again. Either they were already betrothed, or they lacked talent and virtue. Not a single one could meet his standards. Father grew worried and couldn't help but pour out his troubles to the Minister of Rights, who had come to drink tea and play chess with him. Minister Ju, perhaps aware of some inside information, couldn't resist smiling and hinting, Brother Jiang, the course of true love never did run smooth. In my humble opinion, your niece's blessings are yet to come. Father looked bewildered, somewhat at a loss, then remembered that the Minister of Rights had a young son who was as elegant and refined as an orchid and jade tree. He suddenly understood. Could it be? Both thought the other had grasped the situation, and they began to chat freely. After Minister Ju left, Father came to me excitedly to ask my opinion. I found it both laughable and frustrating, and told him straight out that he was overthinking it. These two people were talking about completely different things that night. I wrote about this incident as an amusing anecdote in my letter to the palace. Unexpectedly, shortly after the secret letter was sent, there came a very light tap from outside the window. He leaned casually against the window frame, his strikingly handsome features appearing even more indolent and charming in the candlelight, watching me with a faint, ambiguous smile. I helplessly rubbed my forehead. As the Son of Heaven, sneaking into your subject's daughter's bedchamber at night, what would people think if word got out? Xie Chen chuckled softly, climbed in through the window, and very naturally took my hand, his fingertips lightly tracing patterns on my palm. If I keep up the imperial dignity any longer, my future wife might be promised to someone else by her father. Yao, tell me, shouldn't I be anxious? His straightforward and shameless words made me blush deeply. I tried to pull my hand back, but he only held it tighter. He toned down his playful demeanor, his phoenix eyes growing profound. Yao, I came today to ask you one thing. Your Majesty, please speak. He said something astonishing. Yao, will you be my empress? I grant you the position of queen, desiring that we stand side by side, ruling the kingdom together. I allow you to establish a system of female officials, so that talented and learned women can also stand in the court and make their voices heard. Yao, do you think that 1,000 years from now, women in this world will truly be able to stand openly in the court, equal in status to men, and discuss state affairs together? I believe it is possible. Since it can be done, why not let us be the pioneers to make it happen? This vision is so beautiful that for a moment, my heart is captivated and my thoughts wander. I am a man, and no matter how many ideas I may have, there are some things I can never truly understand from a woman's perspective. Yao, you are different. You have experienced the injustices this world imposes on women. You know best what we should fight for and what we should change for women. If I hadn't met you, I originally intended to have the imperial physician fabricate a story about my inability to have children and adopt an heir from the imperial clan. So, between us, there was never any question of having a harem. What do you think? He took my hand and gently placed a kiss upon it. Yao, would you be willing to become my empress, to join me in forging a path never before seen in all of history? The candlelight crackled, illuminating his exceptionally earnest face. After what happened with Shen Yenshuan, I no longer believed in promises of a lifetime with one and only person, but this time, I dare to bet. I bet on his sincerity, on his promises, and even more so, on myself. Even if one day the emperor's favor fades, I will still hold the power he has granted me, and behind me stands the support of women across the land. By then, I will no longer be a dodder vine clinging to others, so why should I fear the storms? Moreover, in this era, where women are only expected to manage the household and raise children, how fortunate it is to encounter such a nonconformist who is willing to break the shackles for you. No one could ever be more in tune with my soul than him. The light in his eyes was too intense. I instinctively reached out and gently covered his captivating phoenix-like eyes. Xie Chen, I softly called his name. You truly are a master of temptation. Beneath my palm, his eyelashes gently brushed against my skin, bringing a faint tickle. The tickle reached all the way to my heart. So, he asked in a low, husky voice, flirtatious yet subtle, has Yao been tempted by me? I lowered my hand, met his brightening gaze, and curved the corners of my lips. Yes, the Cho family was sentenced to execution in the autumn. On the day of the execution, I personally went to see them off. Through the crowd of outraged citizens, I saw Chiu Shuizi weeping uncontrollably. Beside her stood Shen Yenshuan, his expression filled with reluctance. When she saw me, it was as if she had grabbed onto her last lifeline. She stumbled and threw herself in front of me. Jiang Xiao, I beg you, they may have done terrible things, but they are my parents and my brother. You have parents too. If it were you, could you bear to watch them imprisoned and executed? She was crying so hard she could barely catch her breath. I'm begging you, let them go. I know you hate me for taking Shen Yenshuan. Just say the evidence is fake, and I'll give him up. I'll step down and return him to you. All right, let them go. I lowered my gaze and slowly pried her hands away. If I let them go, then I ask you, who will let go of the millions of people in Jiangnan who starved to death without disaster relief grain? My gaze passed through her, as if I could see the tragic scene of Jiangnan back then. Corpses piled up, cries of suffering filled the wilderness, and people resorted to exchanging children to eat. It took me years to restore Jiangnan to its former beauty and vitality. After all, in your heart, the lives of the common people are worth less than those of your few relatives. They embezzled funds and provisions meant to save lives, their hands stained with the blood of the innocent. If you still have even a shred of understanding of right and wrong, if you know they deserve their punishment, you wouldn't be groveling before me now. You'd be better off saving your energy to say a few parting words to them and see them off on their final journey. And one more thing, don't drag my parents into this. My father and mother have lived their lives with integrity and compassion, unlike your Cho family, who feed off the people's wealth and treat their lives as worthless. To be honest, I don't hate you for taking Shen Yenshuan away from me. He's just a man. There are countless young masters in the capital who admire me. What I truly hate is that you sent your brother to force me, keeping me from reuniting with my family for 3 years. Chiu Shuizi trembled all over from my words, her last shred of hope shattered. She turned and clutched Shen Yenshuan's sleeve tightly. Husband, please save my parents. For the sake of the time I saved your life back then in the snow, I was the one who carried you out of the snowdrift. Have you forgotten? Shen Yenshuan was taken aback by the words. Wasn't it Yao Yao who saved me? Qiu Shuizi instantly glared at me with a twisted expression, her face filled with venomous resentment. It was you. No wonder Brother Yanxuan likes you, so it was you who stole my act of saving his life. You pretended to be me. Only then did I suddenly recall that snowy night many years ago. Back then, I was returning to the capital with my mother from my maternal grandparents' home when we came across an unconscious man and woman and saved them. The mother recognized the identities of the two and sent them back to their respective homes afterward. The Marquis of Dingyuan sent generous gifts, while the Prime Minister's residence made no gesture in return. I suddenly found it amusing. Had it not been for me, they would have frozen to death in the bitter cold, so how could there be any question of impersonation? Seeing Shen Yanxuan's expression gradually soften towards Qiu Shuizi, I laid out the events of that year in full. I asked him, "Do you only acknowledge Qiu Shuizi's kindness in saving you, but not my efforts in escorting you all the way?" Shen Yanxuan looked conflicted, and in the end, he actually cupped his hands toward me. "Yao Yao, for the sake of our past affection, could you?" I interrupted him with a cold laugh. "What affection do I still share with you, Shen Yanxuan? In your eyes, does saving someone mean you must love them? But over the years, I've done countless good deeds and saved no less than 1,000 people. Does that mean every one of them should fall in love with me? How could I possibly bear such a burden? Are you treating the imperial court as a child's game, ignoring right and wrong, disregarding laws and principles, all for the sake of your ridiculous notions of love?" Shen Yanxuan turned deathly pale, rendered utterly speechless by my rebuke. "The hour has come. Carry out the execution." Qiu Shuizi let out a heart-wrenching, desperate wail, watching helplessly as the executioner raised his blade and brought it down. Her heart turned to ashes as she looked at the man beside her, the one she had once been willing to do anything to win over, and spoke with profound sorrow, "Shen Yanxuan, I regret it. I regret ever falling in love with you." She smiled bitterly, tears once again streaming down her face. "If it weren't for you, I would still be that proud and radiant young lady. But now, everyone in the capital looks down on me, and you have cast me aside like a worn-out shoe." Her voice grew softer, carrying an endless desolation. "Yet at home, I was once doted on, the cherished pearl in the palms of my parents and brothers. I had no interest in their heart-wrenching, tragic love, so I turned and walked away. Years later, in Fengyi Palace, I suddenly recalled the past and told Xie Chen about what happened at the execution ground as casual conversation. After hearing it, a look of disdain appeared on his strikingly handsome face, and he clicked his tongue, saying, "What a melodramatic mess." I looked up at him. Xie Chen always had a knack for coming up with novel and fitting phrases. He chuckled, leaned in, and pulled me into his embrace, gently rubbing his chin against the top of my head as he explained, "What I mean is, if this kind of plot were in a storybook, the white moonlight who takes credit for others' efforts would surely meet a terrible end, while the main characters would endure a love full of twists and turns. Even with a sea of blood and hatred between them, they would still share a lifetime of affection." As he spoke, he planted a kiss in my hair. Fortunately, Ayao is clever and abandoned that Shen Yanxuan early, taking revenge with her own hands. Such an ending is worthy of my Ayao. "What about you?" My heart stirred slightly as I looked up at him, a playful glint in my eyes. "You treated me so well back then. Was it because of the kindness from those pastries?" Ouch. Before the words had even fully left my mouth, he lightly tapped my forehead with a bent knuckle. "You little ingrate." He feigned anger, glaring at me. "I'm a stingy man. What I promised you back then was nothing more than a single pledge. It is Yao's own determination that has step by step brought her into my heart, to this pinnacle of the world." He cupped my face, his deep phoenix eyes shining like a river of stars. "Yao, I am forever captivated by the brilliance and talent of your soul. It has nothing to do with gratitude, only with you, the one and only Jiang Shiyao." In the years that followed, with his unreserved support, I, like a flower nourished by power, bloomed with an unprecedented radiance and brilliance. In the very end, it was the two sages ruling together, jointly governing the world. On his deathbed, Xie Chen grasped my hand and said, "Ayao, I really wish I could meet you in my world in the next life." His world, I look forward to it. After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.